Part 34. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 332. Asked here, Nangongwei looked a little embarrassed. She hesitated for a moment and said, "Brother, I promised my father and the others not to tell anyone about what happened in the cave of Samsara. You only need to know that I have experienced some difficult things. It's enough to persevere and get good rewards. The Samsara cave is related to the secrets of Xuanhuan. If one day you can meet the standards in my father's mind, you can know the details of the Samsara cave." Oh, there was no way to know why she grew and changed. Although he was a little regretful, Wu Yu also understood that after all, this was a secret of Xuanhuan, and he was not the core of the Xuanhuan immortal sect, so it was better not to know. "Brother, you can't leave me. Although my father has some restrictions on me, I will be your man. I will help you more in your future practice. But don't put too much pressure on you." Nangongvera holding his palm, he said solemnly. As a woman, she dared to reveal her heart so boldly, so Wu Yu had nothing to be coy about. He stretched out his hand and pinched Nangongwei's cheek, saying, "Don't worry, I will practice Taoism for the rest of my life. As long as you don't dislike me, I will be by your side and will not leave you." "That's great." Nangongwei smiled slightly. This satisfied smile was like the flowers blooming in the cave, and the passion like fire burned in the cave. The two were cozy for a while, and Nangongwei suddenly asked, "Brother, are you still using the Jufang demonic suppression pillar?" Wu Yu nodded and said, "Of course you will use the things Wei gave you, and you will keep them even if you don't use them." She actually doesn't know Wu Yu's current true combat power, and only thinks that he is at the 7th level of the Golden Core Dao realm. Thinking about it carefully, for Wu Yu now, the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar is indeed enough. Nangongwei smiled with satisfaction and said, "I want you all the time, and I use the gifts I gave you. When you reach the Kanghai realm of Zifu and can use the super spiritual magic weapon, I will also give you another treasure. Let you think of me and see me all the time." Her eyes were burning. Suddenly, she felt that Nangongwei's personality was much more domineering, as if she wanted to occupy her. However, Wu Yu did not reject it. He smiled and said, "As for whether it can be used, in fact, I can use the super spiritual magic weapon now." "Huh?" Nangongwei was startled. She shook her head and said, "Brother, you don't know that super spiritual magic weapons are difficult to master. I only recently mastered the Red Phoenix Blood Sword, and it took a lot of effort." Wu Yu smiled faintly and said, "You are looking down on me. Of course, it's a joke." However, this made Nangongwei curious. Wu Yu had always been a freak in her eyes before. It was indeed unprecedented to be able to stay in the Xianjian domain at the 6th level of the Golden Core realm. She was curious about Wu Yu's current combat power. Curious in her heart, she suddenly took action. Her fingers were like swords, and the flames wrapped around them like snakes, and she suddenly stabbed Wu Yu. Wu Yu knew that she was testing him, so he poked her with his finger, and their fingers collided in the air. At such a close distance, although the power of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm was extremely vast, Wu Yu's refined body actually blocked Nangong directly. Wei's temptation has an equal outcome. How is that possible? Nangongwei knew the details after a little probing. Wu Yu said, "Although I haven't made as much progress as you in the past few years, I have made some achievements. I also challenged and defeated the 9th in the Xianjian Immortal ranking, and then entered the Xianjian realm." Nangongwei thought about it carefully. The Xianjian Immortal ranking was definitely at the 10th level of the Jindan Dao realm. To be able to defeat an opponent at the 10th level at the 6th level of the Jindan Dao realm was simply unbelievable even to him, so she was pleasantly surprised. And shocked, he said, "Brother, I underestimated you. I didn't expect that you are still so surprising." She seemed very satisfied, but when Wu Yu thought about the gap between him and her, he realized that his progress was nothing. After all, he had received the inheritance of an immortal, and he should be better than Nangang Wei. Let's go pick out the super spiritual magic weapon now. Nangang Wei stopped him. Wu Yu quickly said, Wire, this can't be done. The super spiritual magic weapon is too valuable. I'd better rely on myself. Keep your own resources for yourself. After all, you need it too. As a man, Wu Yu was still not used to using her money. Nangang Wei glared at him and said, What are you talking about? I'm just giving you a gift. Besides, my father gives me 200 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills every month, and I'm worried that I won't be able to use them all. 200 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills equaled 20,000 Yuan Jin pills. When Wu Yu heard this, he immediately had the urge to vomit blood. As expected, people are extremely irritating, especially compared to rich second-generation people like Nangang Wei. She is extremely short of money, but she is worried about running out of money. Follow me, you can't do it like a mother-in-law. In my heart, you are a hero who is upright and decisive in killing. Nangang Wei bit her red lips and stared at her with wide eyes. Under her rough threat, Wu Yu thought to himself, anyway, she is the one who will accompany him for the rest of his life. Now he can use some of her endless energy pills to make up for her later. Thinking of this, he nodded. Okay. This is just right. Nangang Wei was satisfied, and the two of them left Kishan Cave. As soon as they came out, they suddenly found that there were many Xianjian level disciples peeking around. When Wu Yu came out, they dispersed in a hurry, obviously spending a lot of time outside. From this, Wu Yu understood that the incident between him and Nangang Wei had probably spread all over Shushan, and now it was probably in an uproar, and he was once again a man of the hour. Why are these people so nosy? It's really annoying. Nangang Wei and Wu Yu wielded swords side by side, and they headed towards the Palace of Magical Artifacts together. The two of them were accompanying each other. At least in appearance, they looked like a good match for each other. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. As soon as they left, many Xianjian level disciples started talking. Looking at their relationship, it's really good. I really envy Wu Yu. Not only is he extremely talented, but he is also so lucky. He has really reached the sky in one step. Don't think too much. I'm not optimistic about them. To be honest, Wu Yu's current level is far inferior to Nangang Wei. It's not certain whether Qiang Sword Immortal will agree to their being together. That makes sense. However, if they stay in pairs like this every day, both boys and girls, I'm afraid a lot of things will happen. In fact, Wu Yu knew what they were talking about without having to listen. Maybe others think that he may not be worthy of Nangang Wei now, but in fact he doesn't feel much pressure. Nangang Wei is at the peak of her power now, but considering her potential, Wu Yu is actually very sure that he will surpass her one day. In the blink of an eye, under the attention of the Xuanjian level disciples and even some sword level disciples along the way, the two arrived at the magic artifact hall. After Nangang Wei fell down, she said proudly, "Brother, I failed to fulfill my promise. Secondly, I want to apologize to you. I can give you any super spiritual magic weapon in this magic weapon palace." This time she was resolute, and Wu Yu refused to disappoint her and said, "Just remember not to make an example next time. When the time comes, you won't be able to please me with just a super spiritual magic weapon." Of course, this is a joke. I know. She held Wu Yu's arm, pressed against Wu Yu's body, and walked into the magical artifact hall with Wu Yu like a couple. Such a scene really made many people envious. All the onlookers around knew that Nangang Wei's status is so noble. In contrast, they are envious of Wu Yu, who can be with such a beauty day and night, and now she should be here to exchange magic weapons for Wu Yu. Suddenly, Wu Yu had the image of a freeloader. Any man would be envious, jealous, and hateful after seeing this. Since she was generous, Wu Yu was really rude. He happened to be the poorest now, so he didn't think much about it. He walked directly to the Haoshan Sun sword and Yu Wu Qing Kong sword. Needless to say, Nangong Wei knew what he valued. The combined value of these two super spiritual magic weapons is more than the Red Phoenix Blood Sword. I remember these two swords. They are a pair of immortal lovers from my Shu Mountain, traveling around the world, living and dying together. Nangong Wei is still a girl no matter what, and her heartstrings moved when she saw that there was a story in this super spiritual magic weapon. A sword is as bright as the sun in the sky, and a sword is as blue as the moon, accompanying life and death. I want them, Nangong Wei said directly to the stationed Earth Sword level disciples. 45,000 meritorious deeds. Facing the daughter of the Qiang Sword Immortal, the Earth Sword level disciple was still a little nervous. He was the one who introduced these two swords to Wu Yu, and now he looked at Wu Yu's eyes, really full of envy. Take it. Nangong Wei was generous and threw a sumuru bag to him with a casual count. In the magical weapon hall, the elixir can also be used directly as the heart of the sword. Yes, yes. Soon, Wu Yu directly obtained the coveted super spiritual magic weapon. Very relaxed. During this process, he truly realized how lucky he was to have an elder to protect him. Basically, he could achieve anything he wanted. Wu Yu still had a dream-like feeling after receiving the sumuru bag containing these two super spiritual magic weapons. Brother, let's go. Nangong Wei couldn't help but laugh when she saw him like this. There were many people outside the scene who saw this scene. Wu Yu knew very well that in a short time, Nangong Wei's news of giving him two super spiritual magic weapons would spread throughout Shushan. In this way, there is a feeling of being taken care of. Brother, do you need Taoist magic? If you can really try the super spiritual magic weapon, do you want to try the mysterious art of heaven and earth? I have only recently figured out a mysterious art of heaven and earth. Nangong Wei spent so many Kanghai Yuankai pills, not distressed at all. No, that's enough. Although this is very convenient and Wu Yu really needs it, Wu Yu is still not used to getting something for nothing. He knows better that he is not Nangong Wei. If he needs her to arrange everything for him for a long time, he is afraid that he would probably lose himself. At least he told himself intuitively that everything should be done as soon as possible and never go past it. Okay, let's wait until you have refined this super spiritual magic weapon. Nangong Wei was not particularly insistent on this aspect. The two of them left the magic weapon hall under the envious eyes of a large number of Xuanhuan level disciples who had gathered. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 333. Although Wu Yu thought he could handle the super spiritual magic weapon, Nangong Wei was still not so sure until Wu Yu succeeded. Besides, Wu Yu didn't get one super spiritual magic weapon, but two. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Two super spiritual magic weapons are different from the same super spiritual magic weapon. These two magical artifacts are quite special. Due to the relationship between the previous owners, they have a certain degree of involvement with each other. The spiritual intelligence of the super spiritual magical artifact is already relatively mature. When they are involved together, it is very likely that Wu Yu will need to continue to sacrifice them. 2. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to want one of them to be sacrificed and the other to be left out. Therefore, compared with ordinary super spiritual magic weapons, the difficulty seems to have increased. After returning to Kishan Cave Mansion, Nangong Wei said coquettishly, "Brother, you can rest assured and concentrate on the sacrifice, I will protect you." No problem. The path of cultivating Taoism is lonely. If you are accompanied by someone who agrees with you and shares the same path, it will be another realm of cultivating Taoism. When you are enlightened, you can open your eyes at any time and there will be someone by your side. Perhaps, my heart will feel warm, and many insights may come from her. Not to mention that two people with the same talents can interact with each other, communicate with each other, and fight side by side. It is difficult for ordinary brothers, or even between father and son, to have such a close relationship. With her by his side, Wu Yu felt much more at ease, and he focused all his attention on the two super spiritual magic weapons. When Wu Yu placed the two super spiritual magic weapons, one long and one short, one golden and one blue, in front of his eyes, the entire training room was shining with these two kinds of light, competing to shine, and there was no conflict between the two kinds of light, but blend together, like symbiosis, between the two swords. It is like two small beasts leaning on each other and communicating softly. Call. In an instant, Wu Yu held the hilts of the two swords almost at the same time. One left and one right. The yin-yang sword wheel has two uses, the mind and the heart. Basically, the method of sacrifice is also instilled into two super spiritual magic weapons at the same time. Wu Yu suddenly felt that there was a vast spiritual world among the super spiritual magic weapons. In an instant, Wu Yu was divided into two completely different worlds. One world was like entering the interior of the scorching Sunday. There are raging and burning fires all around, and the other world is like being in the moon. The moonlight is as clear as water, surrounding the surroundings, and there is a serious murderous intention in the coldness. Boom! Because of Wu Yu's invasion, the two worlds suddenly experienced earth-shaking changes. In the scorching sun, anger surged, and the earth collapsed. In the moon, cold air swept across, sword energy exploded everywhere, and the moonlight was like water, turning the river upside down. In an instant, Wu Yu was knocked out, and the swords in his hands vibrated wildly, trying to escape Wu Yu's control. Elder brother. Nangong Wei was a little worried. In fact, she did understand that it was difficult to conquer the super spiritual magic weapon. It took her several days to conquer the Red Phoenix Blood Sword a few days ago. It is obviously more difficult for Wu Yu. However, Wu Yu did not give up after being easily expelled. He used his majestic physical strength to directly hold two super spiritual magic weapons to death. The super spiritual magic tools roared and vibrated in his hands, and the magic weapon array even started to operate. Anger and coldness spread towards Wu Yu's body and arms, already attacking Wu Yu. You must know that psychic magical weapons will never be like this. Only super spiritual magical weapons have the ability to attack independently. Incarnate as a Vajra, Wu Yu was even more polite and directly transformed into the inner Vajra Buddha. The 6-foot-tall Buddha statue completely wrapped the two swords with its thick palms, making it impossible for them to escape with their wings. The magic weapons of these two swords, the power of the formation spread over, causing the entire inner Vajra Buddha to burn up. The stern sword energy also shot out from Wu Yu's body, piercing randomly. However, in a short period of time, relying solely on the super spiritual magic weapon alone, it was indeed very powerful. It is difficult to break through the inner Vajra Buddha. Such a change made Nangong Wei feel a little calmer. However, she still didn't quite believe that Wu Yu could succeed. Now Wu Yu once again entered the spiritual world of two super spiritual weapons. As soon as he entered this time, Wu Yu visualized the mental ape. Under a strange change, the mental ape he visualized appeared directly in the super spiritual world. In the world of spiritual magic weapons. Boom boom boom. The super spiritual magic weapon is attacking the unparalleled Monkey King who is burning in the fire. With Qi resisting in front, Wu Yu was much more prepared this time. In fact, as long as he could withstand the impact of these two super spiritual magic weapons, he would be fine. After all, without support, Wu Yu would be exhausted most easily. The flames in the scorching sun flew violently and rolled over, but Wu Yu remained as still as a mountain. He was immersed in the world of Naxinun. Like a pilgrim, his spirit and will remained motionless, searching for the secret of this super spiritual magic weapon. Plant a mark in the world. Time passed, and from the outside, the inner Vajra Buddha seemed to have some cracks under the attack of the two super spiritual magic weapons. Nangongwei couldn't help but frown slightly. She felt that Wu Yu was a little too desperate. Suddenly, the two super spiritual magic weapons suddenly stopped their attacks and became softer, and Wu Yu suddenly changed back to him. He was holding these two magic weapons and long swords, with the scorching sun on the left and the picturesque moonlight on the right. His face changed between golden yellow and dark blue, and he looked a little pale, but his eyes were burning and even more confident. Judging from the two super spiritual magic weapons obediently surrendering in his hands, there is no doubt that he succeeded. Finish. Seeing such a scene, Nangongwei was slightly shocked and couldn't help but ask, "How did you do it?" After all, she had just experienced it. Without him, all it takes is a strong spirit and a firm will. Wu Yu said what was in his heart. This was indeed his secret. Incredible. Nangongwei was slightly stunned, and her surprised face was a bit cute, a bit like the expression she had when she was a little girl. But soon, she accepted the result, smiled softly, and said, I knew my brother would not let me down. Nonsense, just two super spiritual magic weapons are of course not worth mentioning, Wu Yu said with a smile. Brother, please continue to get familiar with them. I also want to calm down and take the next step. Nangongwei sat cross-legged in front of him, as if she wanted to face him face to face and practice together. Good. The two of them sat opposite each other without much communication. In this practice room, each other could feel each other's temperature and breath. This was a kind of beauty. There are nearly 200 magic weapon arrays in the Haoshan Sun Wheel Sword and the Moon Dance Clear Sky Sword. Most of them are auxiliary magic weapon arrays to enhance the effectiveness of attacks. There are also two main magic weapon arrays to support the Super Soul. Among the two swords, the magic weapon, like the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar, each has an attack array, which can directly mobilize all the magic weapon arrays to assist this array and directly form an attack and killing method. In the Haoshan Sun Wheel Sword, there is the Haoshan Blazing Sun Sword formation, which is extremely powerful. In the Moon Dance Clear Sky Sword, there is the Nether Moon Withered Sword formation, which is even more lethal and can be said to be frightening. Wu Yu is currently thinking about these two sword formations. He is deeply involved in them and is fascinated by them. After he has mastered the two super spiritual magic weapons, this is actually not difficult, it only requires him to spend a certain amount of time. Occasionally opening her eyes, Nangongwei is also practicing with her eyes closed. Her body is covered with 9-color brilliant flames. In the firelight, she looks like a fairy reborn from nirvana. Every detail on her face is so charming. Wu Yu still lamented that in just a few years, the original little girl had grown into a Taoist monk that was envied by everyone, and even a Taoist monk that all men dreamed of. Being able to have her is indeed a blessing, and I am afraid it can save decades of hard work. Time passes. During his monastic life, someone always accompanied him and was inseparable. It seemed that even his cultivation was much faster. It didn't take long for Wu Yu to study these two treasures thoroughly. Now, the 3 treasures in his hand were all given by Nangongwei. He also cherishes it very much. Although he was from the Far East, he and Nangongwei were indeed childhood sweethearts. About a month later, Nangongwei called Wu Yu on this day. After opening her eyes, she found that she had a bitter look on her eyes and said, "Brother, my father asked me to return to the immortal realm for a while, and he arranged a task for me, let me finish." Looking at her expression, Wu Yu knew that she had to fulfill the instructions of the Qiang Sword Immortal, so Wu Yu did not leave her alone. Even Taoists did not need to get along day and night, so he nodded and said, "No problem, if you want to see her come down to me anytime. Contact the Benwei talisman." Nangongwei gave him thousands of Benwei talismans and put them into a special sumuru bag, so that they could chat directly using the Benwei talismans. It was because of her wealth that she redeemed so many talismans at once. When Wu Yu found out, he felt that she was a waste of money. Wu Yu sent her out of Kishan Cave Mansion, and it was still the same. Many people were paying attention to the situation of the two of them. In fact, the news that the two had been living together for more than a month had spread out long ago. Now, the entire Shu Mountain was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred towards Wu Yu. By the way, there is one more thing. As soon as he walked out of Kishan Cave Mansion, Nangong Wei took him back. After closing the door, she took out a pure white sword-shaped token from the Sumuru bag and said, "This it's the Wushuan order, given to you, and it will be yours from now on." "What does it do?" Wu Yu flipped it over and looked at it a few times. The token itself was not special, but it was difficult to copy the previous magic circle. Nangong Wei said, "This is the qualification for training in the Wushuan Sword Sea. Only by holding the Wushuan order can you enter the Wushuan Sword Sea and experience it." Wu Yu had never heard of this place, so he didn't say much, but waited for Nangong Wei to explain it to him. The Sea of Unparalleled Swords is a special training place set up by the Immortal sect for some young and talented disciples. Not many people know about it, and those who hold the Unparalleled order will keep it secret accordingly. I guess I haven't given it to you yet. I will give it to you later. Shirai Shenzhenjiao will also give it to you. Compared with other training places in the Immortal sect, there is no doubt that Wushuan Jianhai can get the most achievements and the most training. After all, it is a genius level. Only then can one obtain the qualifications. For example, Zhao Xianxian and his ilk will barely be qualified to go to the Unparalleled Sword Sea until he reaches the 9th level or above of the Jindan Dao realm. However, He Taoyu is not the core of our Shushan Mountain and does not have the qualifications of. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 334. Next, Nangong Wei briefly introduced Wu Yu to the Wushuan Sword Sea. The Wushuan Sword Sea is located in the ordinary sword domain, but you need the Wushuan order to find the gate and passage of the Wushuan Sword Sea. The Wushuan Sword Sea is a strange place in the Shushan Immortal Gate. It is a sea of swords. Whether it is the clouds in the sky or the waves under your feet, they are all in the shape of swords, and even the splashing water drops are in the shape of swords. Therefore, in this Wushuan Sword Sea, the disciples' understanding of the sword will be greatly increased by many hints. In fact, the Wushuan Sword Sea is not big, so it can accommodate at most dozens of people at the same time, which is why geniuses are qualified. The most important experience is a kind of sword puppet. Of course, Wu Yu knew the existence of the sword puppet in the Tongtian sword section. With his current understanding of the array, he did not try to make a mechanism array puppet array, otherwise he could also make it. Of course, he is a novice, and the sword puppet of the Wushuan Sword Sea is not the same concept. The puppets in the Wushuan Sword Sea are strong and weak. The strong ones are difficult to deal with at the Earth Sword level or even the Heaven Sword level, while the weak ones can probably be dealt with by Wu Yu. In the Wushuan Sword Sea, fighting with the sword puppets is like fighting with the Shushan seniors. The combat experience and cultivation experience gained are very fast. These sword puppets are more valuable to fight than demons. The reason for this is that these sword puppets were all made by one person, and that person is the Xuanji Sword Saint, who is known as the 8th strongest person in Shushan and the first sword saint in Shushan. Xuanji Sword Saint is obsessed with magic arrays and is said to be one of the best people in Shenzhou to arrange magic arrays. It is even said that although he is not in the realm of Yuan Shen Huaxing, he can already draw real magic arrays. It is said that with the magic array, he can even compete with the 7 Immortals of Shushan and fight. He is a legendary figure in Shushan. The Xuanji Sword Saint lives in Wushuan Sword Sea. He has nothing to do on weekdays. Apart from practicing, he draws magic arrays. It is said that he can create a sword puppet with a casual drawing and put it into Wushuan Sword Sea. He always maintains the number of sword puppets in Wushuan Sword Sea at about 100. If anyone breaks a sword puppet, he will create another one. It is said that when he draws the magic array and creates the sword puppet, he will add his understanding of sword and Taoism to fight with the sword puppet, which is even equivalent to the opportunity to fight with Xuanji Sword Saint. This is why Wushuan Sword C is of great help to us. During the time I return to the fairyland, you will go to Wushuan Sword C. Nangongwei has arranged it for him. It seems that she also wants Wu Yu to catch up with her as soon as possible, otherwise it seems that getting along like this will never have any results. How to get merit in Wushuan Sword C, Wu Yu certainly wants to go. Nangongwei is eager, so he naturally wants to prove himself more. You only need to defeat the sword puppet, and with the remains, you can directly exchange for merits and obtain the sword heart at the entrance of the Wushuan Sword C. The sword puppet is very valuable. For example, if you defeat a puppet whose strength is equal to the 10th level of the Golden Cordeo realm, you will get 500 merits. The stronger the sword puppet, the more merits you will get. Of course, because the number of sword puppet is limited and there are other restrictions, it is not realistic to make huge profits here. What if there is a sword puppet that even the heavenly sword level disciples can't deal with? Wu Yu asked again. You don't have to worry about this. Xuanji Sword Saint has complete control over these sword puppets. He will choose the right opponents for the sword puppet. Generally speaking, it is not easy to find a sword puppet in the Wushuan Sword C. You can only let the sword puppet come to you. After basically understanding the details, Wu Yu was ready to go directly. First, he could hone new super spiritual magic tools. Second, he could improve his sword and Tao, and even facilitate the tempering of the golden core and improve his level. Third, he could also gain merits, and finally obtain cultivation resources by himself. This Wushuan Sword C was exactly where Wu Yu needed to go the most at present, and Nangongwei really understood his current situation. Brother, wait for me to come back. After saying goodbye, Nangongwei was a little reluctant. Wait. Wu Yu grabbed her and pulled her back, not caring about anything else, and kissed her red lips again. Although the black flame still sprayed over and burned Wu Yu to the point of wanting to curse, he still kissed her anyway. Leftward arrow, rightward arrow. Nangongwei's face instantly turned red, and she looked at Wu Yu with a grudge, and hurriedly turned her waist to fly away on the sword, and disappeared in the sky of Xuanjianyu in a blink of an eye, going to a place where Wu Yu could not go. For her, fight. In the short term, at least there was an urgent and desired goal. The more the Qiang sword immortal intercepted, the more Wu Yu was dissatisfied. Now that he had this Wushuan order, he said no more, and didn't care about the envious or jealous eyes around him, and went directly to the Fanjianyu. One day, they will separate because of the huge gap between them. In this world of cultivation, there are so many lovers, but they can't stand the huge gap between their identities. How many so-called immortal couples can there be in this world? The world of cultivation is realistic and cruel. Even if they love each other, once one of them falls, it will be difficult to share life and death. It has been a long time since I returned to the Fanjian realm. Flying in the sky, Wu Yu is still a little uncomfortable with the slightly scarce spiritual energy. This huge contrast, the Earth Sword realm is really like a heavenly palace. Looking up, he went as far as the Earth Sword realm. The Heaven Sword realm and Shushan Immortal realm are still his forbidden areas. Wu Yu really wants to stand at the top of the entire Shushan and take a look at the heavenly palace. Unparalleled order. There was a guiding route on the magic circle of the Wushuan order. Wu Yu walked all the way in this world of ice and snow. After several twists and turns, the traces changed, and finally he entered a deserted ice and snow valley. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Many Fandan disciples were passing by at high speed on the road. When they saw Wu Yu, they were so frightened that they almost fell off their swords. Isn't that Wu Yu? He returned to the mortal sword realm. Didn't he go with the daughter of the Qiang sword immortal? Why did you come back alone? Could it be that the two of you were separated? I don't know. This guy is too high profile. I'm not very optimistic about him. Some people say that he will be the next Galaxy Sword Master, but I don't think so. Galaxy Sword Master is far more low-key than him. A person like him will probably die prematurely. Why is it that Wu Yu is now also a Xuanhuan level disciple, and they are not allowed to discuss it? However, the monastic life is too boring, and one or two big news will really make people feel itchy. This deserted ice and snow valley is the entrance to the Peerless Sword Sea. I just don't know how many places this Xuanhuan immortal sect hides that I don't know about. Wu Yu walked deeper, and the Wushuan token in his hand shone with white light. He saw a mountain wall on the left. The wall suddenly lit up with the light of the magic circle. When the light flashed, the rocks on the mountain wall became soft and rolled like ocean waves. Wu Yu quickly stepped forward and stretched out his hand to pass through the mountain wall. This is the entrance. Without much hesitation, he stepped directly into the mountain wall. If he fell into the sea, he disappeared with a plop. The magic circle on the mountain wall disappeared instantly, and the rocks on it returned to their original shape and became hard again. Wu Yuruo arrived in an ocean world, surrounded by water. He rushed upward and rushed out of the water with a crash. This is a bright, pure world. There is calm and clear sea water under your feet, and the water droplets are as fine as swords. It takes a closer look to find that the sea is composed of dense sword-shaped water droplets. Above the sky, the situation is the same. All the clouds and mists are flying in the shape of swords. The whole world is very calm, but the way of the sword is always revealed, as if in an instant, the world can be transformed into a Shura battlefield. On this calm sea, there was a wooden house not far away. There was a simple window on the wooden house. Wu Yu had a vague feeling that there was someone inside, probably only one. After thinking about it for a moment, he realized that this should be the place where the exit was exchanged for merit. The Wushuan order is like this. You can come twice in a year, and there is no time limit each time. You can even stay here forever. But as long as you leave, even for a while, it is considered once, so basically everyone who comes will stay in the Wushuan Sword Sea. Long enough. The people in the wooden house didn't speak, and Wu Yu was about to leave here and go to the far side of this unparalleled Sword Sea. This world was so peaceful that it was a bit weird. Even the sea under his feet really didn't have any ripples at all. It was so peaceful. It's like a mirror. Just after walking a few steps, a group of people seemed to be coming here in the distance. The view here was very wide. When Wu Yu discovered them, they also discovered Wu Yu. In the blink of an eye, they had appeared in front of Wu Yu. A few dozen feet away. Wu Yu, it's you. The leader was a woman wearing a long floral dress. She was very pretty, but her look was incomparable with Nangongwei, who was becoming more and more noble and elegant. Wu Yu and Nangongwei got along for a while. Today, when I look at Mu Lingch again, I no longer have any sense of beauty. Yes, this group of 6 people is Chenfuyu and Mu Lingch. It seems that they all have unparalleled orders and are geniuses recognized by Xuanhuan Immortal sect. You also got the Wushuan order? Who gave it to you? Chenfuyu's expression was gloomy. It was obvious that he was most unhappy with Wu Yu. Wu Yu didn't bother to waste time on them. He didn't want to answer and was about to go around. At this time, Mu Lingch said, "You are not having a fierce fight with Nangongwei, why do you come here to suffer? I see you have already become the daughter of the Sword Immortal, so why bother to train anymore and just live on a diet for the rest of your life? With Nangongwei protecting you, who would dare to offend you now?" Another woman next to him said, "Yes, I gave you 2 super spiritual magic weapons, which makes people really envious. I didn't expect you, Wu Yu, to be a pretty boy. I really can't understand that such a noble person as Nangongwei Why are you so nice? I heard that you met when you were young? I think you must have deceived her feelings while she was young and ignorant. But Wu Yu, to tell you the truth, I heard that Qiang's sword Immortal is very fond of you. If you're not satisfied, it's just Nangongwei's insistence. Once she changes her mind, you really mean nothing. Everyone laughed. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 335. Wu Yu was really puzzled. These children of the Sword Saints were swaggering around the market every day without any scruples. Why were they so nosy? He was too lazy to respond, but the other party was aggressive. 4 of the men were jealous of Wu Yu. Even Mu Lingch didn't like him. Wu Yu remembered that he didn't seem to provoke her directly. At first, she was venting her anger for Xuanhuan and the others, but after all, she defeated herself once. Could it be that he couldn't bear to see his defeated generals enjoying more glory than himself? In fact, no matter what Xuanhuan and Chen Fuyu said, Wu Yu didn't bother to pay attention to them. They had been left behind by Wu Yu for a long time. Wu Yu only regarded them as villains to discuss, but Mu Lingch, the number 1 in the Xianjian Immortal list, was the first one in the list. He was a little unwilling to lose that time, but now that they met and sparks flew, he didn't leave. He looked directly at Mu Lingch and said, "What about me, Wu Yu? I have nothing to do with you, right? How Wei and I get along doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. Is it your turn to take care of it? You don't like me, and I don't like you, so why bother?" Mu Lingch smiled sweetly and said, "Without him, I just feel that Shushan is our Shushan. You, the humble bloodline, who want to compete with us and compete for our resources are all wishful thinking, let alone want to reach the sky in one step. Being a Taoist couple with the daughter of the Sword Immortal is just a defeated subordinate of me, Mu Lingch. What qualifications do you have, not to mention Nangongwei, you are not even worthy of carrying my shoes." Wu Yu rarely gets angry, but Mu Lingch's words still made him furious. He didn't want to ruin his mood today, but the other party kept pestering him. He was not afraid of trouble. He knew how to deal with this person, so at this moment, he said directly, "Okay, my general is defeated, then I will challenge you Mu Lingch again today. As per the old rules, this time I will give you 20,000 yuan of golden elixirs and 200 Kanghai Yuan Kai elixirs. Do you, a Shushan orthodox person, dare to accept the challenge?" Those who claim to be orthodox are obviously the most unpopular. Chen Fuyu laughed and said, "Wu Yu, you have become rich recently. Can you get the 20,000 yuan golden elixir? Or did you shamelessly ask Nangongwei for it? This is not a battlefield for fighting immortals, this is Wushuan Jianhai, even if junior sister Mu destroys you, no one will stop you, do you believe it?" Mu Lingch smiled faintly and said, "Stop bragging and bluffing. If you can come up with 20,000 yuan of golden elixir, I will let you lose again today, and the defeat will be even worse." Without saying a word, Wu Yu took out the Haoshan Sun Will Sword and the Moon Dance Clear Sky Sword, and said, "They are worth 45,000 merit. If you win, just pick one and sell it at Ubeo Pavilion, and you will get 20,000 above. This is the love token given to him by Nangongwei according to legend." When he saw these two swords, Mu Lingch couldn't help but turn around and smiled at each other with his companions behind him. Wu Yu is so mad at us that he even gambles on these two treasures. That's great, they communicated secretly. Junior sister Mu took his weapon away. When Nangongwei saw it, she would definitely be angry that he was useless, and maybe kick him. Maybe, then I would also have the opportunity to become the son-in-law of the Sword Immortal. Junior sister Mu, both it's up to you. Yes, this Wu Yu is a gambler. If he really loses Nangongwei's gift, if I were Nangongwei, I would not be able to forgive him. They communicated secretly, but nothing they thought about could escape Wu Yu's eyes. In terms of intelligence, Wu Yu is indeed superior to them. Wu Yu knows exactly what they are thinking now, so he is not worried at all that Mu Lingch will not fight. Today's matter must be resolved through fighting, otherwise this group of people will definitely be more entangled than themselves because Mu Lingch defeated them before. Only a fight can shut them up completely. Okay, I'll play with you again, but after you lose, don't cry on the spot. Besides, this is not a battle of immortals, and I won't show mercy to you anymore. Mu Lingch smiled contemptuously and said softly. Junior sister Mu, if we have the opportunity to pursue Nangong Wei, it all depends on you. When I become successful in the future, I will definitely not forget you. Mu Lingch rolled her eyes at them and said, I don't like you guys, so don't embarrass yourself by saying it. After saying this, Mu Lingch was actually not satisfied with the sudden appearance of Nangong Wei. It's so cool. She used to be the princess of the entire Shu Mountain, but now someone else is crushing her in terms of status. For a moment, they retreated, but surrounded him, sort of preventing Wu Yu from escaping. On the calm sea, there was silence. Only Wu Yu and Mu Lingch were facing off. Facing this opponent for the second time, Wu Yu was much more prepared. Why he lost the last time, he knew very well. Every time he lost, he would thinking deeply about it. In fact, the last defeat was more due to his lack of understanding of his opponent. The long dress of Mu Lingch automatically appeared in the absence of wind, and colorful petals appeared invisibly, flying around her. All the flowers bloomed for a while, transforming her into a fairy among flowers, which was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. However, Wu Yu still felt that Mu Lingch's beauty was indeed a bit petty in front of Nangong Wei, who was flying like a phoenix in the sky. In short, the pattern is not enough. Wu Yu was well prepared for this battle. As soon as the battle started, he transformed into an immortal ape. A golden ape appeared on the calm sponge. It was violent and enthusiastic. Its temperament was in sharp contrast with the calm sea. Suddenly, Wu Yu held 5 hairs and blew them gently. Suddenly, a total of 6 identical golden apes appeared in front of Mu Lingch. There was no difference at all. Then, a sword appeared in the hands of each golden ape. There was no super spiritual magic weapon in it. When their positions changed and the golden light blocked the sight of Mu Lingch and others, it was difficult for others to distinguish which one is the real Wu Yu. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. He doesn't have 3 clones, why are there 5? Maybe they were hidden before. So what if there are 5 of them? They are just trivial in front of Mu Lingch's magical powers. Amid Chen Fui's confusion, Mu Lingch indeed looked at these clones with a contemptuous smile. In terms of combat power, these 5 clones were not very powerful for the time being. She twisted her waist and danced, and many petals danced around her. Her graceful figure was extremely moving, and a sea of flowers filled her with countless flowers. Just like last time, her magical power and the illusion of hundreds of flowers began to show again, and the fragrant floral fragrance spread toward Wu Yu. It's as if the whole world has turned into a world of flowers. Wu Yu held his breath and blocked all communication with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. For him, this battle needed to be resolved quickly, so he suddenly launched an attack before the 100 flowers fantasy spread. Whoosh! The 6 golden apes suddenly dispersed, and then rushed towards Mu Lingch from all directions with swords. The sword skills in their hands exploded, such as the Void Super Divine Sword, the Void God-Killing Sword, etc. The power was very great, and they could even directly reverse the void directly exploded many petals to pieces. Cut off contact? Let's see how long you can hold on. Mu Lingch still smiled scornfully. She naturally knew that Beiwa Fantasy would not be so easy to succeed this time, but the problem was that she did not just have these abilities. At this moment, a sword suddenly appeared in her hand. The sword is like a slender petal, red in color and extremely delicate. There are many magic weapon arrays on it, and they are moving rapidly under its powerful elixir. Super spiritual magic weapon. Wu Yu didn't expect that besides himself, there really was another Jindan Dao realm who could also refine super spiritual magic weapons. It seems that the reason why Mu Lingch reached the top of the mysterious sword immortal ranking is not due to the effect of the 100 Flowers illusion. The power of the 100 Flowers illusion still has an impact. At least firstly, Wu Yu cannot replenish his alchemy. Secondly, the fragrance of the flowers will still penetrate strongly into his body, leaving him with nowhere to hide. Whoosh whoosh. 6 golden apes surrounded Mu Lingch, scurrying up and down, waving the swords in their hands, and directly fighting with Mu Lingch. Obviously, Mu Lingch held a super spiritual magic weapon and was more ferocious, suppressing the apes step by step. Defeated. When Chen Fuyu and others saw it, they laughed. Wu Yu won't be able to hold on for long under junior sister Mu's peony fairy sword. Yes, this 100 Flowers illusion is junior sister Mu's world. If anyone fights against it here, their combat effectiveness will be greatly reduced. Haha, Wu Yu is dying. While they were laughing, Mu Lingch suddenly strengthened his attack and displayed a new sword cultivation technique. 100 Flowers psychedelic heart-piercing sword technique. As soon as the sword came out, it was easy and free. It directly pierced one of Wu Yu's clones with one sword, and then focused on the other 5 and began to kill. Mu Lingch now had a very expression on his face. It's easy and the sword is very casual. Crush them all. When her sword came out, flowers flew, the sword energy passed through her heart, and she naturally had to die. At this moment, she crushed Wu Yu's clone with force and smashed it again. At this moment, Wu Yu's body was on his side. This was his opportunity. From the battle until now, he had not really used all his strength, just to wait for a moment. In fact, they didn't know at all that Wu Yu had successfully refined 2 super spiritual magic weapons. Therefore, when Wu Yu's battle ended, they felt that Wu Yu was incompetent. At this moment, Wu Yu suddenly rose up, and the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar appeared in his hand. He used the 9 directions breaking boundary, soared into the sky, and smashed towards Mu Lingch. Mu Lingch smiled coldly and said, "I knew you would want to take advantage of the chaos to attack." She had already prepared. As soon as she finished one sword strike, she added another. The sword movement was extremely fast and she smashed down the Zhufang Zhen demon pillar. Before, Mu Lingch directly penetrated Wu Yu. Bang! Wu Yu exploded, and it turned out that this was also a clone. It's a pity that Mu Lingch didn't expect this at all. She only knew that Wu Yu was dormant and looking for opportunities, but she didn't know that the first person he broke out was not the real him. At this time, the Haoshan Sun Will Sword and the Moon Dance Clear Sky Sword appeared in his hands. He was directly behind Mu Lingch, waiting for a long time. At this time, it was the time when Mu Lingch proudly destroyed Wu Yu's clone holding the 9 directions suppressing demon pillar. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 336. At the critical moment, it is at this moment. It has been accumulated for a long time, and it exploded instantly at this moment, and it was the moment when Mu Lingch was most proud and careless. In the hands of the real Wu Yu, the 2 super spiritual instruments that had been subdued and controlled by him appeared shiningly. At this moment, Wu Yu's right hand was the slender and hot Haoshan Sun Will Sword, which was horizontally across his chest. The scorching sun was rotating on the hilt, and the instrument array on it was running rapidly. His left hand was behind him, under the scorching heat, and the dark blue murderous intent was hidden behind him, ready to strike a fatal blow at any time. At this moment, with the impact of Dan Yuan, 99 instrument arrays on each super spiritual instrument suddenly started, rotating around a main attack array diagram, and Wu Yu used the yin-yang sword will, and his mind was divided into 2, so the 2 sword arrays were released almost at the same time. The addition of the 2, the effect is not even as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Haoshan Blazing Sun Sword Formation. A sword was thrown out, and the domineering sword energy gushed out like a rolling sun, forming a sword formation. Thousands of sword energy wrapped in golden flames rushed wildly on the calm sea surface, killing Mu Lingch violently. Above the unparalleled sword sea, a rolling heat wave suddenly flashed, and even the calm sea water was steaming up. Dark Moon Desolate Sword Formation. Under the rolling heat wave sword energy, Wu Yu's other sword hid a lot of dark blue sword energy. The dark blue sword energy was hidden in the darkness, densely packed, like the mysterious moonlight, melting into the scorching sword energy like the scorching sun, and had formed a huge net invisibly. To be frank, the two sword formations surrounded Mu Lingch at this moment. In the sword formation, there were countless suns in the sky and countless full moons flying. The sun and the moon rotated, completely trapping Mu Lingch. Then, in the next moment, the power of the two sword formations exploded. Boom boom boom. The violent Haoshan Blazing Sun Sword Formation and the Dark Yu Desolate Sword Formation intersected. At the same time, Mu Lingch was completely trapped in the world of swords for a while. He had fallen into Wu Yu's trap before. At this moment, he had no time to react. As soon as he formed a defense, he was directly swallowed by Wu Yu's attack. Reversal. Bang bang bang. Wu Yu knew that he could kill Mu Lingch on the spot with this attack, but he didn't need to do so. Although he only did it to a certain extent, it also caused Mu Lingch to suffer enough damage. At least a large amount of fiery sword chi passed through his body, and the dark moon sword chi pierced his flesh and blood. The sun and moon sword formation rushed into his body and raged, instantly crushing his flesh and blood, burning his bones and muscles. Mu Lingch screamed in pain, and his miserable voice was earth-shattering. This scene came too quickly. I'm afraid Xuanhuan and the others haven't reacted yet. They even had contemptuous smiles on their faces, but they didn't know that such a huge change could happen in this instant. Mu Lingch was undoubtedly seriously injured. He was defeated miserably by Wu Yu. After a moment of shocking disbelief, the remaining 5 people said nothing, all drew out their spiritual instruments, performed sword cultivation techniques, and surrounded Wu Yu. The descendants of the masters and predecessors showed their magical powers and were amazing. Wu Yu was of course not their opponent, so he moved more quickly. After severely injuring Mu Lingch, he attracted the 9-sided demon pillar, which turned into 9 pillars and instantly suppressed Mu Lingch around him, locking him under Wu Yu's control. At this time, Wu Yu easily entered the 9-sided demon pillar, stretched out his hand and pinched Mu Lingch's neck, and lifted him up. Now looking at Mu Lingch, she is naturally in a very embarrassed state. There are 2 kinds of sword formations, the sun and the moon, directly engraved in her body. Although her body is recovering, it is always destroyed by Wu Yu's sword formation. If she wants to recover completely, she must spend a lot of effort to expel Wu Yu's sword formation and then recover after rest. Her face was pale, and under her skin, one could see the golden burning sword energy and the dark blue sword energy drilling and raging. Wu Yu, Mu Lingch stared at him with struggling eyes. The charming body in the long dress with hundreds of flowers trembled slightly in his hands, either because of anger, fear, or unwillingness. Wu Yu controlled Mu Lingch's life and death. The other 5 people who wanted to besiege Wu Yu were naturally restricted. Moreover, the defense of Zhifang Zhenmo was not something they could easily overcome. If they messed around, it would be even worse to hurt Mu Lingch. If you are willing to bet, you have to accept your fate. Don't do other useless things. Wu Yu picked up Mu Lingch, pulled him in front of him, and said word by word in his ear. The people outside quarreled and cursed together. Wu Yu, let her go, or we will send you to hell. Mu Lingch is the daughter of Xuanhuan Sword Saint and Luo Sword Saint. You dare to hurt her like this, you are dead this time. Wu Yu, don't force us to kill you. Our patience has its limits. Xuanhuan also gritted his teeth and said fiercely. Wu Yu faced their threats calmly. He lifted Mu Lingch, and his huge physical strength made Mu Lingch unable to move at all. I am too lazy to get entangled with you. Since we agreed on 20,000 yuan of golden elixir, now Mu Lingch is not my opponent, but has become my defeated general, so I have to send the 20,000 yuan of golden elixir up, otherwise, I will naturally not let her go easily. As he said, Wu Yu slightly increased his strength, and Mu Lingch had difficulty breathing and his face flushed. Give it or not, Wu Yu was too lazy to humiliate her and directly stretched out his hand to ask for it. From the great victory to the disastrous defeat, Mu Lingch's own heart may have collapsed. He thought that he was so cool when he threw Wu Yu's 2000 yuan golden elixir into the mortal sword realm, but now he is like a chicken with Wu Yu holding it in his hand. Here, she is simply ridiculous and pitiful, like a drowned dog. She still has the charm of a flower fairy. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Xuanhuan and the others still wanted to step forward, but Mu Lingch was controlled by Wu Yu, and they had no choice for the time being. You will regret it. Mu Lingch's face turned red. Sick, she was so upset that Wu Yu took action himself. Anyway, her sumuru bag was hanging, so Wu Yu took it out. He could still deal with the magic circle on the sumuru bag. Opened it and saw that it was full of treasures. He didn't look at anything else. He saw a lot of Kanghai Yuankai pills. He hooked his hand and 200 Kanghai Yuankai pills flew out from Sumi. They came out of the bag and got into Wu Yu's hands, and then asked Wu Yu to transfer it to his sumuru bag. Thank you. After winning the bet, he glanced at Mu Lingch teasingly. The other party was naturally furious, but she was still suppressed by Wu Yu. After the deal was done, Wu Yu reached out and patted her face, making a snapping sound, and said, next time you meet me, stay out of the way, otherwise I will take 100 Kanghai Yuankai pills from you once I see you. After that, he suddenly exerted force, almost using all his strength, and threw Mu Lingch in the farthest direction. Mu Lingch screamed and disappeared from everyone's sight in an instant. All they could feel was that she was thrown into the distant sea. After a long time, I fell into the water with a plop. Why don't you hurry up and save her? Wu Yu clapped his hands and said to Xuanhuan and the others who were still stunned. Or do you also dare to challenge me? I don't want to fight without success. If you want to fight with me, each of you must first come up with 10,000 yuan of golden elixir. Wu Yu faced them with ease. In fact, if they were to besiege Wu Yu, he would have no choice but to escape, but it would not be easy for them to hurt Wu Yu. Therefore, after defeating Mu Lingch, Wu Yu no longer had to be afraid of them. We'll see. Chen Fuyu was the first to retreat. He was far from Wu Yu's opponent. At this time, he quickly said, I'll go see junior sister Mu first. As soon as he left, the others couldn't keep him, and they all went to find Mu Lingch. Wu Yu, you have caused a huge disaster today. One day, you will regret your arrogance and domineering behavior today. Finally, Xuanhuan gritted his teeth and roared. I just did a trivial thing today. Don't think too highly of yourself. You guys, defeated generals, are nothing. Wu Yu smiled faintly. In fact, he knew what they were doing, so he didn't take them to heart at all. Humph! What a despicable person! Xuanhuan cursed at the end and went to check on Mu Lingch's injuries. Wu Yu finally got a lot of property. After losing 2,000 yuan of gold elixir, he won 20,000 yuan in victory. He was in a good mood. As soon as they left, he was already thinking about where to use the 20,000 yuan of gold elixir. Good. The two swords given by Wei are indeed terrifyingly powerful. Even Mu Lingch is completely defenseless. Now that they have mastered two super spiritual magic weapons, there is no shortage in this aspect for the time being. According to the original plan, I should exchange it for a sword cultivation technique, and it needs to be more lethal than the two sword formations. Thinking of this, his goal has been determined. He looked at the vast sea of unparalleled swords and suddenly thought, this sea of unparalleled swords has so many sword puppets. It is a place where you can hone your sword cultivation skills. If I exchange for sword cultivation skills now, I can do it here, just practice and practice at the same time. Therefore, he felt that if he went out from here and exchanged for a sword cultivation technique before coming in, his experience in this unparalleled sword sea would be more targeted. But there is a problem. Each Wushuan order can only enter the Wushuan sword sea twice in a year. Wu Yu's entry and exit will be counted once, so that at the end of the year, he will only have one chance. Fortunately, Wu Yu calculated the time, and it seemed that in more than 3 months, it would be a new year, and there would be 2 more opportunities. If he couldn't go out today, the impact should not be big. In that case, let's go back to Xuanhuan domain first. He has a decisive character and does what he says. At this time, without saying a word, he immediately left the Wushuan sword sea. Over the years, he is probably the only person who, after entering the Wushuan sword sea, left without even seeing the sword puppet, wasting an opportunity. Of course, Wu Yu knew that he had not wasted it. Not only had he avenged his previous shame, but he had also made a fortune. Maybe in more than 3 months in this unparalleled sword sea, the achievements he had made were not as good as this moment. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 337. Inside Wushuan Sword Sea, you can't receive the tail talisman. Leftward arrow, rightward arrow. When Wu Yu came out of Wushuan Sword Sea, a piece of talisman paper that had been flying in the air for a while flew into Wu Yu's hand. It was Nangong Wei's handwriting. Brother, have you entered Wushuan Sword Sea? Have you come out? I don't know how long it will take for you to see this message. I will go to achieve a goal given by my father. I will come to you after I get it done. Don't worry. I can't receive the tail talisman during this period, no need to reply. I don't know what task the Qiang Sword Immortal has assigned her, there are too many secrets in Shushan. Wu Yu is not a high-level person now, and he can't get in touch with them. However, Nangong Wei still misses him, and he is in a good mood. After saving the tail talisman, he flew to Qingtian Shushan, ascended to Huangjianyu, and then ascended to Suanjianyu, and went to the Daofa Hall in Suanjianyu. This is the first time Wu Yu has come to the Taoist Hall. The layout is similar to that of the Magical Instrument Hall. In the Taoist Hall of Xianjian Domain, there are about 200 heaven and earth mystical arts. The level of heaven and earth mystical arts is above the golden elixir Daoism. It is the condensation of the perception of the predecessors. With a long history, deep perception, and countless times of practice, it is possible to create Daoism. Wu Yu does not have this ability yet. Heaven and earth mystical arts require the level of Purple Mansion Kanghai realm to have enough understanding. You are still far behind in realm. I suggest you don't worry, the accompanying Earth Sword level disciple gave him advice. It's okay, I'll take it and think about it first. Wu Yu wandered around and searched, because there were only 200 heaven and earth mystical arts in total, so it would not take much time. Mystical arts penetrate the heaven and earth, and Mu Lingch has not been able to practice heaven and earth mystical arts. If he really uses it, the power will definitely greatly exceed my current limit. There is no rush in realm, so Wu Yu thought that he must give himself the best and most perfect choice in other aspects. Seeing that Wu Yu really wanted to exchange for the heaven and earth mystic arts, the earth sword level disciple couldn't help but be surprised, and secretly murmured, being favored by the daughter of the sword immortal is really a big deal. First, 2 super spiritual instruments, and now the heaven and earth mystic arts, I'm envious, really envious. Thinking of how he rushed to the earth sword level, he suffered a lot and spent several years to finally have super spiritual instruments and heaven and earth mystic arts, and couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Wu Yu was immersed in the introduction of those heaven and earth mystic arts. 7-star soul-stealing sword art. With Dan Yu and Dao mind, the power of the stars is drawn to forge the 7-star soul-stealing sword Qi, which is indestructible and indestructible. The 7 stars are indestructible, and the sword Qi is immortal. This sword is very powerful, but at a glance, the value is 23,000 merits, which is beyond Wu Yu's current tolerance. Blood soul heart-piercing sword art. Condensing blood and soul, the means are cruel, similar to the means of ghost cultivation. Not only is it not suitable for Wu Yu, but the value is also low, and it can be won with 11,000 merits. After reading almost all the 200 heaven and earth mystical arts, he weighed the pros and cons and found the sword cultivation technique that maximized the value and attracted him the most. Wu Yu chose this time, focusing on the lethality to the enemy. Xianxian Shocking Soul Sword Art, 19,000 merits. This Xianxian Shocking Soul Sword Art is mainly about the word shocking soul. Before the Yuan Shen is transformed into a physical form, the soul is inseparable from the physical body, and its real existence is invisible and intangible. The so-called understanding, the perception of Tao, and even more hidden in the soul, there is even a saying that the soul is immortal and immortal, such as Minglong's current state, that is, a little immortal soul is absorbed by the Ruyi golden hoop. And this shocking soul sword art, it is rumored that it can suppress the soul, and even form an assassination. If you practice it to a deep level, you can penetrate the soul with one move and kill the enemy. Even if it is shallow, it can still cause heavy damage to the enemy. The key is that most cultivators cannot resist this Xianxian shocking sword art at all, and can only rely on the strength of their souls to withstand it. Of course, its effect of shocking the soul is also part of the power of the sword art. The other part is the sword energy that destroys the flesh. If this part of the sword energy is blocked, it will indeed reduce its power. Even so, this sword cultivation technique is still terrible. After a detailed study, Wu Yu made the decision to exchange it. In the envious eyes of the earth sword level disciples, he took away the Xianxian shocking sword art and left here without saying a word. After studying it for a few days in the Kishan cave mansion, he roughly understood it and had a little idea of its cultivation method. Then he set out again and headed for the Wushuan sword sea. The sword puppet has no soul, so the Xianxian shocking sword art has little effect on it. This is the weakness of this sword cultivation technique, but its attack power will only be greater against lives with souls. It is precisely because it has no soul that it can be used for training again and again. Otherwise, if it is tested on a cultivator, it will be a troublesome thing to accidentally kill someone with this heaven and earth Xuanchu. After all, I don't think I can control the power of the heaven and earth Xuanchu for the time being. After a rough preview, Wu Yu found that the difficulty of the heaven and earth Xuanchu is still very high. Whether he can practice it in the Wushuan sword sea is also a question. This time when he re-entered the Wushuan sword sea, he did not meet Mu Lingch and the others. I don't know if they went deep or left. Wu Yu walked alone and left the wooden house and went to the depths of a certain direction in the Wushuan sword sea. There was always a calm ocean under his feet, and white clouds rolled over in the sky, constantly changing the shape of the sword. At a boundless location, Wu Yu stepped lightly on the water. He had already memorized everything recorded in the Xianxian Jinghuan sword technique, but the most important thing now was to feel the essence of this sword technique. To kill other people's souls, you first need to know the existence of your own soul, which requires a deep grasp and feeling. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Cultivating Taoism is often a brain-burning problem. Sometimes meditating on the instructions silently and meditating may not yield results. Sometimes, you can find breakthroughs and answers in simple, ordinary life. If you want to understand the mysteries of heaven and earth, you naturally need extraordinary understanding. The further you go in practicing Taoism, the more Wu Yu discovers that understanding is no less important than the physical talent. Perhaps because of the inheritance of the Monkey King, he was more interested in visualizing mental apes. Instead of looking at each other, Wu Yu could even imagine that those golden fires and everything on the Monkey King's body, even the hair, were composed of countless Tao. One hair contains something different, and the Tao that Wu Yu has now comprehended is used to temper golden elixirs. It can be said that even one cold hair is far inferior. It is naturally more difficult to master the mystical art of heaven and earth than to refining a super-spiritual magic weapon. Wu Yu is not in a hurry. During the journey of cultivating the Taoism, the most important thing to control is impatience and violent emotions. Sometimes they can only be used in battle. When the mind is at peace, the Tao will follow. Heaven's reincarnation, the soul is immortal. First there is spirit, then there is body. 3 souls and 7 souls are the foundation of human beings. The place where the spirit and will are, the palace of memory, and the body is controlled by the spirit. In the sea of suffering in the world, the body is a boat, and the soul is like a human being standing on the boat. If the boat breaks, the soul will drown and fall into the 9 springs of hell. These mysterious sentences can only be truly understood after death. Sometimes in the moment of life and death, it seems that we can understand better. In less than half a day, Wu Yu hadn't figured out much about this mysterious art of heaven and earth. Instead, Wu Yu stood still on the sea and met the first sword puppet. He was meditating hard. In the sea water in front of him, there was a human figure forged entirely from metal materials. The object rose slowly from the bottom of the water, and the sea water fell from under it. After falling into the sea, no ripples were formed. Wu Yu took a closer look and saw that except for the fact that the sword puppet was made of steel-type treasure, which was different from the physical body, it was really similar to a real person in other aspects, with no missing eyes, nose, and mouth, just like a soldier wearing armor. Of course, the most gorgeous thing about it is the magic circle. These are special puppet magic circles. With its chest as the core, there is a large and complex central formation, which is the center of its power. It is surrounded by large and small magic circles. Small magic weapon arrays, large ones occupy the entire chest, small magic weapon arrays, or even just a few stars. The total number of magic weapon arrays on such a sword puppet is estimated to be more than 100. Now that magic weapon array is running, absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, giving it almost endless power. Those magic arrays are perfectly arranged, with symbols flashing on them, and the colors are all matched very mysteriously. This is the first time Wu Yu has seen it. When I saw the works of Xuanji Sword Master, I was naturally very shocked. What I saw in front of me was like a work of art. From this artwork, I could see the understanding and pursuit of Tao by Xuanji Sword Master. The magic circle is truly the most sophisticated design in the world. The Tao of the mysterious Sword Master is probably so strict, without any flaws. Sometimes, the path and meaning of art are closely related to the Tao. There must be a reason why a strong person becomes a strong person. The sword puppet in front of him gave Wu Yu a big reminder, especially after seeing Wu Yu. The sword puppet raised the sword in his hand and pointed it at Wu Yu. Obsessed with Xian, he saw that the sword puppet could even speak. It said, "I am the water ruler of Xuanji Sword Master. Please give me your advice." How interesting. Instead of confronting him, there is no difference between fighting against a real person. In Wu Yu's right hand, the Haoshan Sun Will sword appeared. He held the Haoshan Sun Will sword, faced Shui Qi, and said, "Xian sword level disciple Wu Yu, learn the clever tricks." He was no longer polite to the convenience, and suddenly, Wu Yu felt that the speed of absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth increased tenfold. For a moment, the magic circle roared, and the originally calm sea surface suddenly turned upside down, and the sea water turned into an angry dragon, coiling around the water ruler rotated, eyeing Wu Yu eagerly. Most of the formation diagrams on this sword puppet are related to water. One of the formations changed, and Shui Kai's body suddenly evolved rapidly, more than 3 times in size, and turned into a huge thing, blocking Wu Yu's eyes. Even the blade of his sword was much larger. The next formation moves and the killer move comes. It was a formation similar to the Haoshan Blazing Sun Sword formation. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 338. Chapter 336 Baishan Mo. The water ruler is like a compact machine, and it also has a certain degree of autonomy. Although it is a puppet, it is very much like a life. When it decides to attack, hundreds of magic formations on its body operate almost at the same time. Each magic formation completes a certain effect. Then, with the main formation as the central core, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth accumulated for a long time explodes at the same time, controlling the angry sea for a while. Flying between the sky and the sea, with one sword, the sea rolled. In this sword energy, the vast sea turned into thousands of water dragons, each with a huge force, rushing and rushing. Sure enough, there was a deeper sword intention hidden in this magic circle. The water dragons roared and roared from time to time, sometimes it turns into a magnificent sword energy. Super Divine Sword of the Void. Wu Yu casually struck a sword, and the invisible sword energy shook the void, forming waves in the void, advancing layer by layer. In the blink of an eye, the two formations collided. In terms of head-on confrontation, after all, Wu Yu's impact was stronger. Therefore, the Void Super Divine Sword easily defeated the attack of the Water Ruler. The Void God Killing Sword. Wu Yu made another sword strike with his backhand. The power of the scorching magic weapon array of the Haoshan Sun Will Sword was integrated into the sword technique, making the Void God Killing Sword mixed with the power of the Scorching Sun's magic weapon array, and its lethality was even higher. The sword pierced, and the void twisted, forming a huge sword, which penetrated directly into the body of the Shui Qi. The magic circle on it vibrated and suddenly collapsed, and the Shui Qi exploded into pieces. Success, Wu Yu quickly collected the remaining materials for the water ruler. These materials can be exchanged for merit. It is said that these remaining materials will eventually return to the hands of the mysterious sword master. It seems that he can reuse the discarded materials, repair some more, and draw a magic circle to make it a sword puppet again. Obviously, the magic circle ability of this mysterious sword master has reached the level of perfection. The reason why I can defeat Shui Che so easily is because Shui Che is almost the weakest sword puppet. He probably came to me because I only have the 6th level of elixir in the golden elixir realm, but I have probably passed this level once. The mysterious sword master knows my abilities, and if he finds my sword puppet again, he will definitely be stronger. While Wu Yu changed positions, he entered the state between the sky and the sea, and turned his attention to the Xianxian shocking sword technique. He had just fought with the Shui Qi, but he did not expect the sword technique at all. It will probably take some time to really hone the mysterious immortal shock swordsmanship with the sword puppet. Sword puppets are not real life, so they have no souls. It is difficult to defeat them with Xuanhuan's frightening sword skills. The soul is the foundation of life. It exists in my body. The soul is me. Time passed, and Wu Yu was completely immersed in the mysterious art of heaven and earth until the next sword puppet arrived. Sure enough, the second sword puppet that appeared was much more powerful than the first one. Wu Yu spent a lot of effort and even used 2 super spiritual weapons to finally defeat it. Here before, Wu Yu regarded the sword puppet as an object to hone the Xianxian shocking sword technique and tried it several times. The temporary effect was not very great, but he put himself in danger several times, relying on 2 super souls. The magic weapon barely averted the crisis. It is indeed much more difficult to master the mystical arts of heaven and earth than the super spiritual magic weapon. Fortunately, everything went smoothly next. Perhaps it was due to his understanding. Wu Yu felt that it was not difficult to feel the soul. Actually, this mysterious art of heaven and earth is good for you. You have to transform the soul after all. It will be much easier to comprehend the soul in advance. In this regard, you can also widen the gap with others. Ming. It was rare for Taki to speak seriously. However, after actually embarking on this path, Wu Yu felt that what she said was correct. The soul is the foundation of man. Time passed, and after about a month, after trying again and again, Wu Yu was able to display the Xianxian shocking sword technique in front of him. Of course, his opponent has always been a sword puppet, so even he himself doesn't know the true effect. In 1 month, Wu Yu encountered a total of 7 sword puppets. He defeated 5 of them, escaped with 1, and 1 was too strong, so Wu Yu escaped first and got rid of the opponent's attack. Basically, when encountering the sword puppet, Wu Yu spent a lot of energy time and time again, pondering and adjusting again and again, bringing out the latest insights and gains in his heart, and then made adjustments by taking action. Although it took a month, but tried at least 1,000 times. His superb understanding, superhuman training, and persistence allowed him to get on the right track little by little. In the next month, Wu Yu clearly felt that his Xianxian shocking sword technique had basically taken shape. Of course, he has been training with the sword puppet, and even if it takes shape, he doesn't even know its true power. Naturally, Wu Yu was not satisfied enough. He estimated that Nangongwei would not be able to complete the task quickly, so he persisted for another month. The next month was a complete sublimation. With full dedication, everything fell into place. The mysterious art of heaven and earth that others had to ponder for a long time was almost mastered. Of course, because there are countless living people in the Wushuan Sword Sea, and there will be no conflict with Wu Yu, so in the end, Wu Yu left the Wushuan Sword Sea without trying the true power of the Xianxian shocking sword technique. Anyway, it is basically ineffective against sword puppets. In more than 3 months, Wu Yu defeated a total of 13 sword puppets. At the entrance, when he handed the materials for the sword puppets into the wooden house, someone in the wooden house threw a sumuru bag. Wu Yu opened it and counted it. There were more than 6,000 sword hearts in total. The gains from Wushuan Sword Sea are really great. It may take more than a year or 2 to get these achievements when you go out to perform missions. For these attacks, he plans to buy some more alchemy and magic circle related items, learn to refine more pills, draw more magic circles, and even try the heaven and earth formation. In fact, just in the past 3 months or so, Wu Yu has made a lot of progress by comprehending the way of the soul. These improvements have been integrated into the golden elixir, and the speed has also increased a lot. It has super high spiritual energy of heaven and earth, almost no different from the earth sword realm, so he estimates that he will be able to sprint to the 7th level of the golden core realm within a short distance. Nangongwei's achievements are too high now, which actually makes him feel a little stressed. Even if he himself is very indifferent, others will be worried about him, not to mention some gossip. Moreover, the Qiang Sword Immortal Society has always existed. Although Wu Yu has never seen him, he still knows his attitude. Since he has set a rule that he must surpass Nangongwei in combat power before he can become a Taoist companion with her, he obviously wants to eliminate him. Moreover, the hands and feet he used on Nangongwei made it impossible for Wu Yu to have physical contact with her, which was not what a gentleman should do. After coming out of Wushuan Sword Sea, I feel that Shushan Immortal sect is a little more lively. Wu Yu didn't feel anything, but after coming out, he immediately received Nangongwei's original talisman, which read, "I have completed the mission. If you come out of the Wushuan Sword Sea, please give me a message." This talisman was issued not long ago. He had not seen him for 3 months, but he still missed it. Wu Yu sent out a talisman and quickly returned to Kishan Cave Mansion, because he knew that Nangongwei had obtained the talisman. After that, I will go to Kishan Cave Mansion to find him immediately. The sword flew at a fast speed. It didn't take long for Wu Yu to fly up to the Qingtianshu mountain. He continued to rise in the yellow sword domain. On the way, he passed by the fighting immortal battlefield and found that there were many people there, although they were not involved fighting, but chatting enthusiastically, looking like a lively person. Compared with this, Wu Yu is really not worthy of carrying shoes for this Baishan Mo. Yeah, it's so different. I'm not from the same world anymore, someone lamented with regret. To be honest, if we had to choose a golden boy and girl in our Shushan immortal sect, they would be Baishan Mo and Nangongwei. In comparison, Wu Yu is really far behind these two people. To put it bluntly, if Wu Yu becomes the Wen Yu and Nangongwei got together, it didn't feel right anyway. I always felt that Wu Yu had stepped in and ruined a beautiful marriage. That is, in terms of status, Wu Yu is far away from them, and in terms of talent and strength, they are also very different. The combination of Baishan and Nangong is what everyone in Shushan expects, and it is a great thing. The Baishan line once also had a strong influence on Shushan. He has made great contributions and achieved great results, but the family has been neglected for thousands of years. Now that Baishan Mo has appeared, our lost lineage in Shushan can be considered as truly returning. Nangongwei is the inheritor of his ancestor Kwang Sword Emperor. Baishan Mo is even more terrifying. It is rumored that he has been inherited by the Qingming Sword Emperor. This Qingming Sword Emperor can be said to be the #1 inheritor in Shushan today. It is said that the Qingming Sword Emperor is the most likely person to become an immortal in the past 100,000 years in Shushan. He was the only one who died in the final immortal catastrophe. If he could survive the immortal catastrophe, he would be an immortal by now. Immortal. The other Kwang Sword Emperor and Star Domain Sword Emperor are far from reaching this level. Qingming Sword Emperor. It seems that the biographies of Shenzhou have recorded this figure. He was a generation of heroes from the immortal sect of Shushan. He was once the supreme ruler of Shushan. At that time, Shushan, where someone was sitting, was undoubtedly the #1 force in Shenzhou. At that time, all demons were almost eliminated. He killed them all, and to this day, the Qingming Sword Emperor is praised by his descendants. Wu Yu, on the other hand, was confused when he heard this. Who is this Baishan Mo? Why did this character appear out of nowhere, and was compared with himself? It seemed that everyone knew about his existence, but he was the only one who didn't know about it. In fact, when they said this, they had already seen Wu Yu. To be honest, they were still in awe of Wu Yu, so they quickly closed their mouths and smiled awkwardly at Wu Yu. Wu Yu stopped leaving. He landed on the battlefield of fighting immortals, glanced at everyone, and said, I have been in seclusion for 3 months, and it seems that another extraordinary person has appeared in the Shushan immortal sect. Can any of you tell me about it? If you read more than 5 chapters a day in a row, there will be a period of exhaustion. I was really exhausted today. It took me most of time to write just 1 chapter. But don't worry, we will slow down for a while and continue to update more. Although there are some fluctuations, there will generally be more updates. For the time being, there will be 10 updates on May Day visual inspection on that day. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 339. The Huangjian level disciples looked at each other in confusion. When speaking ill of others, it happens to be heard by the person involved, and this person is much more powerful than them and is a big shot after all, so they feel a little uneasy. When Wu Yu asked, for a short period of time, no one dared to say anything and stood there with embarrassed expressions. Actually, there's nothing bad to say. I guess I went into seclusion before, so I don't know that something big happened in the immortal sect during this period, and an unprecedented and extraordinary person appeared. This person is Baishan Mo, and the noise he creates is even greater than that of Nangong Wei. It's a pity that you didn't appreciate his style for the first time. Someone started to speak, and seeing that Wu Yu was not angry because of what happened just now, the Huangjian level disciples became bolder. No need to exaggerate, just tell me who this person is and how powerful he is. Wu Yu interrupted them and said neatly. At this time, a man stood up. He was an old man with gray hair and a childlike face. At this age, he was basically fearless. He was old-fashioned and said, "We have many bloodlines in Shushan, among which Nangong and Baishan are the second ones. In history, there are many big shots, and now the Qiang sword immortal is Nangong Xian of the Nangong lineage. The Baishan lineage has been on good terms with Nangong for generations. However, this lineage has been in decline for a long time and has almost disappeared. The people of the tribe have been unable to recover. It seems that only Baishan Mo is left. A single seedling, Baishan Mo didn't have much talent when he was young. Qiang Sword Immortal thought of the friendship between the two clans and asked him to be a sword boy for Nangong Wei. Unexpectedly, after he was 7 years old, his talent suddenly changed and he showed an unnatural talent. With such qualifications, at the age of 17 this year, after 10 years of seclusion, he is already a top genius similar to Nangong Wei. Wu Yu was puzzled and said, "You only found out about Nangong Wei in the past few months. How come you know so much about Baishan Mo?" The man said, "Once this person becomes famous, his identity, status, and experience will always be spread." Nangong Wei had never told Wu Yu about the existence of such a sword boy. However, a 17-year-old character is similar to Nangong Wei, which is indeed very rare, and they also said that this Baishan Mo has been inherited by the Qingming Sword Emperor. To put it bluntly, this Qingming the Sword Emperor also surpassed the more ancient Kwang Sword Emperor. Even the 7 Immortals of Shushan probably have not received this kind of inheritance. Born recently, Wu Yu estimated that this person was sent to the mysterious Shushan Samsara cave together with Nangong Wei because of his amazing performance. 2 months ago, Baishan Mo suddenly appeared in the Earth Sword domain, challenged an Earth Sword level disciple who was 73 on the Earth Sword Immortal list, and defeated him on the spot. Immediately, Sword Master Xuanhuan introduced him. His identity is that he is a descendant of the declining Baishan clan. At the age of only 17, he achieved the status of Zifukang High Realm, and his combat power is even stronger than Nangong Wei. After all, the Qingming Sword Emperor is creating him. He is truly our most shining proud man in Shushan today. Do you know what happened after the battle? The man who spoke burst into tears with excitement, as if he had witnessed this scene. No matter who this person is, at this age, having such a record is indeed extraordinary. Moreover, this person is still a descendant of a declining clan, and his starting point may not be very high. It is obviously not easy to climb to such a position. Wu Yujing waited for the man to speak. The other party made an expression of surprise and said, "Then Baishan Mo actually told the world that he had announced a major news on behalf of the 7 Immortals of Shushan. The news is that 3 months ago, the 7 Immortals of Shushan decided to jointly accept Baishan Mo as their direct disciple. In other words, Baishan Mo has 7 masters, who are the 7 Immortals of Shushan. What is this concept? We, the immortal sect of Shushan, have never had such a situation since ancient times. What does it mean? It means that the 7 Immortals of Shushan value Baishan Mo's talent extremely, are optimistic about his future, and even decided to train him to be the equivalent of the Qingming Sword Emperor of the Shushan generation. Only those characters would choose to recruit disciples together. You know, even Nangong Wei, the daughter of Qiang Sword Immortal, does not have such treatment. Let me tell you, Baishan Mo is now the 3rd among the 7 Immortals of Shushan in terms of status. Even the Xuanji Sword Master can't compare with Baishan Mo, right? This kind of news is indeed shocking even to Wu Yu. The 7 Immortals of Shu Mountain are so high up there that they are all gods-like figures in the eyes of the entire Shenzhou cultivators. What kind of genius does it take for them to put aside their identities and cultivate together? At least Wu Yu has reached this point, and none of the 7 Immortals of Shu Mountain has shown up for him. Wu Yu always seems to be wandering on the edge of Shu Mountain, and Baishan Mo is their core. The successive births of Nangong Wei and Baishan Mo have actually caused violent turmoil in the entire divine continent. Especially the actions of the 7 Immortals of Shushan have caused countless cultivators, even demons and ghost cultivators, to pay attention to Baishan Mo. In this way, Wu Yu knew what was going on. Indeed, no matter how you look at it, Baishan Mo and Nangong Wei are a perfect match. They are both important successors to be cultivated by the 7 Immortals of Shushan. They are both from Shushan and know their roots well. They are their own people. What's more important is that both of them have the talent to crush all geniuses, and both have top-notch inheritance. They may even have grown up together, and have spent more time together than Wu Yu. In this way, Wu Yu truly understood why Qiang's Sword Immortal didn't pay much attention to him and set rules and restrictions for Nangong Wei. It was obvious that Baishan Mo was the one who satisfied the rules set by Qiang's Sword Immortal. Even this Baishan Mo was brought up by him, almost like an adopted son. His thoughts can be guessed by everyone. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. But he didn't expect that Nangong Wei would make a vow of eternal alliance with another person, but she wouldn't listen to his opinion at all. If Baishan Mo also wants to win over Wei, I'm afraid I will have a huge love rival. In comparison, I really feel like a third party who intervenes. Wu Yu sneered. However, he is not afraid. After all, he has the Ruyi Golden Cudgel, and he knows very well that as long as he can survive, as long as he has time and resources, his future achievements will be no worse than Nangong Wei and Baishan Mo. After knowing everything he wanted to know, he didn't stop and turned around to leave, leaving a group of Huangjian level disciples looking at each other. Alas, this news is too heavy for him. I think he does have some fate with Nangong Wei, but sometimes fate is of no use. After all, in order to become a Taoist couple, the qualifications, status, and background must be close. Wu Yu is like a rootless grass now. He has no master and no how many friends can be compared with the common disciples of the 7 Immortals of Shushan. I'm afraid that after a while, even Nangong Wei will figure it out and stop looking for him. With Wu Yu's current achievements, if he works harder, it shouldn't be a problem to become a sword master in the future. If he can let go, he may become a general under Baishan Mo and Nangong Wei. Wu Yu walked far away and didn't hear what they were whispering, but he knew it without guessing. On the journey of cultivating the Tao, you will be impatient with things outside your body, but when pursuing this Tao, you must not be impatient, and your mind will be confused, and you will lose your sense of proportion. Wu Yu smiled. In fact, he also believed in Nangong Wei, and she would make decisions that followed her heart. Wu Yu knew that the only thing he had to do was to make himself better and stop others' mouths. From the Huang sword domain to the Xian sword domain, it turned out to be a lot cleaner. Wu Yu was going back to Kishan Cave Mansion to wait for Nangong Wei to come. However, when he approached Kishan Cave, he found that there were many people surrounding his cave, all of whom were nearby Xuanhuan level disciples. Their swords were floating around, enough for thousands of people, and the scene was very lively. As if waiting for someone. Passing through the crowd, his sharp eyes looked toward the door of his cave. Wu Yu is back. When the first person discovered him, the scene immediately became a sensation. Thousands of people looked over, looking at Wu Yu with a very serious, slightly expectant and nervous look. Their intriguing glances naturally made Wu Yu vaguely guess who was here waiting for him to return from the Wushuan Sword Sea. After all, a conflict that is exciting enough will attract so many people. There are even Earth Sword level disciples who have come all the way among this crowd, waiting here to watch the excitement. Therefore, after Wu Yu came back, Dozens of people moved out of the way on the road leading to his Kishan cave mansion, allowing Wu Yu to see at a glance the man sitting cross-legged in front of his Kishan cave mansion. The boy closed his eyes and waited for his arrival. He is a young man who can be remembered deeply at a glance. He has a relatively immature face and a slender and powerful figure. He is wearing a simple white sword robe. His long hair is tied into a bunch behind his back. His facial features are very delicate and tend to be feminine. Seemed a little soft, but when he opened his eyes, two sword energy shot out, instantly sending hundreds of miles of clouds and mist up. Those eyes were pure blue, like two sharp gems, with penetrating power. His gaze directly pierced Wu Yu's body, making him feel a bone-chilling coldness. This person is Baishan Mo. Just his pair of blue eyes, which can penetrate people's hearts, can make people realize the peerless talent of this young man. No matter who he is, if he takes a look, he will feel as if he has fallen into an ice cave. Of course, Wu Yu didn't let him be intimidated. He looked calmly and looked at this figure who was regarded as a treasure by the 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan. "Hey, this kid still has a baby hanging around his neck," Ming Long shouted, ruining the serious atmosphere. Wu Yu looked over and saw a black tooth-like object hanging on Baishan Mo's neck. From Wu Yu's point of view, this was an ordinary animal tooth. This is a Taoist weapon. What is a Taoist weapon? Wu Yu was shocked. It's something that your 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan may not have, a divine object on top of a magic weapon. And there is also a remnant soul hidden in this magic weapon. /U003 cent /U003e /U003c /sente /U003e. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 340. There are 3 types of magic weapons: ordinary magic weapons, psychic magic weapons, and super spiritual magic weapons. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Taoist artifacts are divine objects that transcend the level of magical artifacts. The simplest difference is that magical artifacts are made by copying magic arrays, while all magic weapon arrays on Taoist artifacts are real magic arrays, drawn with Yuan Shen of, rather than copying. Of course, the spiritual intelligence of Taoist tools will far exceed that of super spiritual magic tools. A real magic circle has the ability to destroy the heaven and earth. When it is drawn on the magic weapon with the soul, the power of the created Taoist weapon will naturally be huge. The most powerful weapon in the world is a Taoist weapon. Unless you are really likely to become an immortal, it is unlikely that you will get an immortal weapon that is more terrifying than a Taoist weapon, Ming Long said seriously. Unexpectedly, Baishan Mo not only has the inheritance of the Qingming Sword Emperor, but also has a magical artifact like a Taoist weapon. If the other party wants to be his enemy, with everything he has now, he is really a terrifying opponent that will give people a headache. It's definitely not as simple as his immature appearance. But you don't have to worry. This little guy is far from being able to wield a Taoist weapon. Now this Taoist weapon can only protect him. But you have to be careful about the remnant soul in that Taoist weapon. It may be the so-called the Qingming Sword Emperor can die in the great catastrophe of immortality, which is an honor for any cultivator. With the guidance of the Qingming Sword Emperor, it is only one step away. This boy is very likely to become an immortal, and his future achievements will indeed be higher than those of your concubine. Wu Yu was extremely shocked when he heard it, but he still had to respond first. Yu, can you stop using the word concubine? Ha, Ming Long laughed dryly. Wu Yu did not expect that a historical figure like Qingming Sword Emperor might still be left in this artifact. In fact, it is understandable. After all, Ming Long still exists. They have all reached the realm of soul transformation. In theory, if the soul does not die, it can live forever. And the Taoist weapon, or the Ruyi golden cudgel, just provides a place for their remaining souls to stay alive. Ming Long actually said that Baishan Mo could become an immortal, and his dream was also to become an immortal. At this point, he deeply realized that the young man in front of him might be an unprecedented enemy on his path to immortality. The key point is that Baishan Mo is obviously not stupid. Behind him are not only the 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan, but also the Qingming Sword Emperor who is always guiding him. It is impossible for such a person to make any mistakes in his mind, and his opponent has transcendent mind and combat power. Indeed, the most difficult to deal with. Looking at each other at this moment, Baishan Mo stood up slowly, with pure white robes rolling down his body. This man looked very pure and simple, with a deep understanding of the Tao and simplicity in his heart. Every move he made was natural, and it was obvious that he understood the Tao. Also excellent. Wu Yu estimated that Baishan Mo was originally a poor boy, and his real change of fate should start when he met Qingming Sword Emperor, just like he met Ruyi Golden Cudgel and Ming Tong. The 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan jointly accepted Baishan Mo as their disciples, probably under the instructions of the Qingming Sword Emperor. Speaking of which, it is very likely that in the minds of Qiang Sword Immortal, Baishan Mo is more important than Nangong Wei. Simply, he is the descendant of the ancestors and the proud son of heaven. Wu Yu Baishan Mo called out. His voice was clear, but it was shocking. If there was a response, it would always ring in his ears. He has obviously been waiting here for a long time, and he must be coming with great force. Sure enough, his next sentence, his voice became colder, and he said, I heard about your deeds. Although you are somewhat capable, you are far from qualified to be worthy of Sister Nangong. I hereby advise you to break off with Sister Nangong as soon as possible, otherwise, I will let you die here, do you know? This young man looks young, but his words are cold and full of momentum. At this time, he can get straight to the point and speak clearly. At the same time, while speaking, his blue eyes must be staring at Wu Yu, and you can feel the power in his body like the ocean. Rolling and surging, he is obviously another character who can defeat Shen Xingyu. Shen Xingyu was actually not far from Wu Yu. At this time, she was breathing quickly and looked nervous. She winked at Wu Yu hurriedly, seeming to ask Wu Yu to back off temporarily and discuss future matters. Don't confront Baishan Mo here. Wu Yu knew his good intentions, but as a man, there are some things that you absolutely cannot retreat from. His eyes were as hot as fire, and he blocked Baishan Mo's aggressive gaze and said, Who are you? Could it be that you are the Qiang Sword Immortal? If not, Qiang Sword Immortal, you are not qualified to care about Wei and I. If we are in love, we will naturally become Taoist couples. What does it have to do with you? If you call Wei sister, what will happen in the future? It's done, you still have to call me brother-in-law. There was an uproar as soon as these words came out. Everyone did not expect that Wu Yu would dare to say such words when facing a person like Baishan Mo. In fact, Wu Yu already knew his identity, but he just pretended not to know. Even if everyone brags about Baishan Mo to the heavens, Wu Yu still knows who will become an immortal in the future. When Wu Yu finished speaking, Shen Xingyu's face turned pale. She walked around behind Wu Yu, her pretty face turned pale, and said, Have you never heard of who he is? Wu Yu, listen to what my sister said, this person is, you must not provoke him. You must admit your mistake to him first and get through this disaster. I will tell you other things. Remember, he is a disciple of the 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan, and he is treated like never before. Wu Yu gently waved his hand back, signaling her to ignore the matter. There are some things that Wu Yu feels that as long as his life is not lost, he must stand firm to the end. No matter who is opposite him, even Qiang Sword Immortal, don't let him take a step back. In fact, Baishan Mo was not angry when he heard what Wu Yu said. He actually had a very mellow temperament. He did not get angry at the word brother-in-law. Instead, he was still very cold. He said word by word, "I understand. It seems you are ready. If you don't listen to my advice, I will kill you today and explain to Sister Nangong and all the masters." This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. This Baishan Mo comes as soon as it comes. The colleague who was talking came to him with his sword in the air. When the terrifying cold air on his body was released, the surrounding Xianjian level and Earth Sword level disciples immediately dispersed in a panic. They fled far away with frightened expressions, leaving only Wu Yu and Shenzingyu and Bei Shanmo were outside Kishan Cave Mansion. This Baishan Mo is really overbearing. He dares to kill even a genius like Wu Yu. Nonsense, he is the apprentice of the 7 Immortals of Shu Mountain, and the treasure of the 7 Immortals, not to mention Wu Yu. Even if he kills a sword master, I guess the 7 Immortals will not punish him. I heard that the 7 Immortals just want to train him. He became the Qingming Sword Emperor and accepted him as his disciple. Now the ruler of Yanhuang Emperor City, as well as the Tegzu Holy Lord of Shangyuan Dao sect, are both super strong. One of them can stop 7 of our immortal sect Shushan 7 Immortals. In this era, our Shushan still lacks the top strong ones. Only then will they be gradually suppressed by Shangyuan Daozong. If Baishan Mo becomes successful in the future, then we in Shushan will definitely be able to overtake Shangyuan Daozong. In short, Shushan Immortal Sect has many strict rules, and any violation by a weak person is a serious crime. However, Baishan Mo alone can break all the rules. He has as many privileges as there are rules. There is no other person, just because he is Baishan Mo. Therefore, when he wanted to kill Wu Yu, everyone thought it was normal. At this time, of course, no one dared to step forward to help or advise, and no one dared to joke with their own lives. At this juncture, Shenzingyu still refused to leave, and Wu Yu was already grateful to her. She stood next to Wu Yu, with a worried look in her eyes, and said, "Baishan Mo, Wu Yu didn't know your identity before he said nonsense. Please be merciful and give me time to explain the pros and cons to him clearly." Baishan Mo didn't stop at all and said, "Don't protect him. I can tell from his eyes that he knows me. Get out of here before I decide to kill you too." Indeed, he is very smart and knows how to observe words and emotions. Immediately, he unfolded his majestic majesty, and it was as if the entire Xianjian domain was surrounded by the sea. There was an endless ocean in front of Wu Yu, and Baishan Mo was the master of this ocean. He was condescending in front of many people. The extremely heavy vast sea seemed to be suppressing directly on Wu Yu's head, bringing terrifying suppressive pressure and directly colliding with Wu Yu's tyrannical body. "If you kneel down to me at this time and tell me that you are willing to leave Sister Nangong, I will not kill you, but I will also give you 3,000 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills," Baishan Mo said in an indifferent voice. 3,000. This is not the Yuan Jin pill, but the Kanghai Yuan Kai pill, which is 3 million Yuan Jin pills. You can buy almost dozens of super spiritual magic weapons. The vast majority of Earth Sword level disciples do not have 3,000 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills, and even some of the Heavenly Sword level disciples do not have such property. However, Baishan Mo could say this boldly. There is a death crisis on one side, and there is immortality and 3,000 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills on the other. I believe everyone knows what Wu Yu should choose, especially under the heavy pressure of Baishan Mo. Awesome, Wu Yu had to admit that this young man's current realm and combat power far exceeded his own. It was difficult for him to breathe just by suppressing his momentum. Even his physical body was about to be suppressed to the point of collapse. However, he looked up at Baishan Mo and still did not take a step back. At this time, he did not know how many people could help him. He only knew that if he took a step back today, his Taoist heart would be shaken. Even if he died, he would not be able to help him. Give in now. Some battles require fighting to the death. He took out the Haoshan Sun Will sword and Yuo a clear sky sword with difficulty, giving Baishan Mo a clean answer. Very good, you made a stupid choice. But I think it's normal. If you had no backbone, Sister Nangong wouldn't look at you differently. Baishan Mo was very calm, but his hands were already making killing moves. Challenge this genius. Wu Yu took a deep breath, his fire surged and his anger boiled. The more oppressive the Tao he inherited, the more powerful it became. Now, in just a moment, he felt that his progress in Tao had exploded like never before, as if his own the body is a world, and now this world is exploding and skyrocketing. \U003 cent \U003e \U003c /sente \U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 341. Since Wu Yu entered Shushan, he has passed through countless obstacles and surpassed countless geniuses, but these geniuses are useless compared to Baishan Mo. Therefore, only Baishan Mo's power and suppression can make Wu Yu feel particularly unhappy. If there are rules in this world, then Baishan Mo is such a rule, and Wu Yu is facing the rules at this moment. What is shown is not retreat, but the fighting spirit to fight to the death. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. The coercion of the other party today, and the genius posture that overcame everything, left a deep impression on Wu Yu. Although both of them were in embarrassment before the turn of fate, Baishan Mo was actually more relaxed. He is now like the son of Shushan Immortal sect, and the entire Shushan mountain seems to be revolving around him. That feeling of suppression was extremely clear in Wu Yu's heart. I am afraid that for a long time, before he surpassed Baishan Mo, he would not be able to forget the suppression that the son of Shushan Immortal sect brought to him today. It was as if the power of heaven were in front of Wu Yu. At this moment, Wu Yu, from the inside out, is like a violent ape, the feeling of being discriminated against, the inner explosion, visualizing the unparalleled Monkey King in the inner ape, a kind of anger, a kind of sweep. If Baishan Mo is the sky, that is to go against the will of heaven and have the undying will to fight. I'm afraid that a few years later, I will still be able to think of the anger in my heart at this moment. However, this confrontation ended quickly before Baishan Mo took action. In fact, under this kind of confrontation, Wu Yu almost forgot about it. When he just came out of Wushuan Sword Sea, he used the original talisman to contact Nangong Wei and told him that he would return to Kishan Cave Mansion immediately. Nangong Wei naturally he was also coming at that time. Therefore, she arrived not long after Wu Yu arrived. When she saw this confrontation, she was startled and quickly rushed between the two of them. It was obvious that Baishan Mo was suppressing Wu Yu, so she looked a little annoyed. He looked at Baishan Mo sternly and said, "Xiao Mo, why are you acting so recklessly? Why don't you stop quickly?" When Baishan Mo saw that it was Nangong Wei, he reluctantly stopped. He regretted that he was too slow. Seeing Nangong Wei's displeasure, he said, "Sister, I did this today because I think he is not worthy of you. Don't let this waste delay your future. For example, you can make rapid progress in the fairyland, but you want to come here. If you practice with him in this barren land of Xianjian territory, it will definitely delay you for a long time. You are my dearest relative, and I can't let him harm you." Nangong Wei was already small enough, but Baishan Mo was even smaller. After hearing this, Nangong Wei thought that he was also thinking about herself, so she was not so angry, but said, "Xiao Mo, this is my business, you can't interfere, let alone bully him. This is the first time, if I don't make it clear to you, I won't be able to forgive you if there is a next time." High in the sky, Nangong Wei's sword robe was flying like a blazing flame, while Baishan Mo's expression was cold and he seemed very unwilling to do so. "You go." Nangong Wei waved her hand. "I'm afraid that you will regret it in the future. I have been guarding you since I was a child, and I have lived for you. You will figure out who is more important to you. After Baishan Mo finished speaking, he didn't stop at all, turned around and left decisively. After a few moments, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Based on his identity, he must have returned to the Xuanhuan immortal realm. Wu Yu Shenzhengyu's eyes were complicated. He looked at Wu Yu and then at Nangang Wei, and said helplessly, "Your affairs have exceeded the level that I can control. You can decide for yourself in the future. There is nothing I can do." Facing Baishan Mo, she was really powerless. "Sister Shen, I will bear the consequences of whatever I choose. I will walk my own path in the future. You have been a great kindness to me, and Wu Yu will definitely repay you in the future." Baishan Mo's matter is over for the time being, and Wu Yu also reassures her for some, he naturally knows who is good to him. Shenzhengyu was still in shock, so he left first. Wu Yu passed over the onlookers and entered Kishan Cave Mansion first, while Nangang Wei followed. When the door of Kishan Cave Mansion closed, everyone woke up from their trance. "It seems that Nangang Wei still cares about Wu Yu," said an Earth Sword level disciple. What magic spell did Wu Yu cast that could make Nangang Wei put aside her childhood sweetheart Baishan Mo and become obsessed with him? It is said that Wu Yu has been with her for a few years. It is normal for a teenager to fall in love with Wu Yu. But she is still young after all. She will probably understand in a few years. Everyone, please rest assured. This matter is not that exciting. Just imagine, if you were the Qiang Sword Immortal, who would you give your daughter to? Now that Wu Yu is still alive, the 7 Immortals are afraid that Nangang Wei will be heartbroken, and they fight, and when Nangang Wei stops protecting Wu Yu so much, it will probably be the day he dies or is expelled from Xuanhuan. In this competition, it is obvious that just like Wu Yu had no resistance in front of Baishan Mo today, Wu Yu will be completely eliminated in the end. Such a rising genius has encountered 2 other more powerful people in the history of Xuanhuan. It's a pity for a top genius. If he has nothing to do with Nangang Wei, he will probably be respected by Baishan Mo in the future. People analyze and leave at the same time. They are all young and have been through it all. They know very well what kind of couple can form a Taoist couple. In fact, when they were young, many people made hasty decisions because of a short-term love decision, but it actually proves that choosing an inappropriate Taoist companion and acting on impulse will eventually pay the price. Only people with similar identities, statuses, talents, backgrounds, etc. can become the most suitable Taoist couple. Others will ruin the couple. Although Wu Yu was at a disadvantage today and might even be laughed at, he was not actually angry in his heart. What was angry was his body and will. Now his mind is filled with a kind of reverse picture, which is a profound realization. In such a state, he feels that he is getting closer and closer to the great sage Kishan in terms of Tao. He sat cross-legged in the training room. Nangang Wei followed in. With an apologetic look on her face, she walked up behind Wu Yu and hugged him gently from behind. Her lips came to Wu Yu's ear and her voice was soft and she said, "Brother, I'm sorry for not telling you that I have such a person exists. He entered the cave of reincarnation with me. He was younger at that time, just a child. He has grown up in the past few years. After all, he grew up with me, so in fact he is almost my biological brother. I also treat him as a younger brother. Don't worry, I don't like people who are younger than me." Wu Yu smiled slightly and said, "But in this vast Shu mountain, it is estimated that 99% of people want you to be together." Nangang Wei chuckled and said, "It's all nonsense. I regard Xiao Mo as my younger brother, so I don't like him. What I like is you. I said that year that I would enter the double immortal palace with you. Stay with you forever. Even if we don't have the opportunity to meet the rules set by my father, then even if we don't become a Taoist couple, I will still be quite happy with you like this." When she said that, Wu Yu felt at peace. He reached out and hugged Nangang Wei, put her in his arms, and helped her tuck her long hair behind her ears. Nangongwei opened her eyes wide, with a smile on her face. Watching his movements with a smile, her face was full of happiness. She was indeed beautiful like this. The beautiful smell of the opposite sex was an attraction to Wu Yu. "My fair lady, a gentleman is so kind. You are so beautiful, so what's the point of working hard for this life?" Wu Yu sighed sincerely. Indeed, although Baishan Mo is extremely outstanding, it is not easy to break them up, at least neither of them agrees. What Wu Yu is slightly worried about is that the 7 immortals of Xuanhuan will come forward in this matter. For the time being, they are probably afraid of Nangongwei's backlash, so Wu Yu knows in his heart that it will definitely be difficult to hold her in his arms like today in the long run. Of course, for Wu Yu, the harder it is, the more challenging it is. "Wire, I find that it's quite difficult to have you. You have to make me use all my strength," Wu Yu said with a smile. Nangongwei smiled sweetly and said, "That's right, I am the daughter of the Sword Immortal, how can I let you get it so easily? You are a bad guy, you took away my heart while I was young and ignorant, and now I am only 1 day old. I miss you every night. Is this fate?" Still, Wu Yu didn't quite understand. But he knew in his heart that he couldn't waste time, he had to practice for many seconds. It just so happened that Baishan Mo brought him a fortune. His eyes instantly became cold and stern, he gently pushed Nangongwei up, and took out a Kanghai Yuan Kai pill from the sumuru bag. "What's wrong?" Nangongwei was still immersed in his arms. "Fight against destiny," Wu Yu said 4 words lightly. In fact, he had never used the Kanghai Yuan Kai pill cultivation fruit. After all, the effect of the Kanghai Yuan Kai pill was really powerful. This was the best spiritual pill. Ordinary cultivators can't cultivate it, and only those in the Kanghai realm of Zifu will use this top-quality spiritual pill to supplement it. If he didn't have a very strong body, he wouldn't have the courage he has now. These 4 words made Nangongwei think a lot. In the end, she stood on the side and silently watched Wu Yu immersed in his world of cultivation. In the past, she also liked to see Wu Yu, who was obsessed with cultivation. In fact, she had a lot of worries and was even under more pressure. She was able to appear here only after a fierce quarrel. As Wu Yu guessed, the 7 immortals of Xuanhuan naturally supported Nangongwei and Baishan. Mo has become a legend in Xuanhuan. In the future, there will even be 2 top superpowers, and they will even become immortals. However, Wu Yu undoubtedly hindered their wishes. "How long can I hold on?" Nangongwei closed her eyes and thought for a long time. Suddenly opening his eyes, Wu Yu stood in front of him, looking at her deeply. "What's wrong, brother?" Nangongwei asked. Wu Yu looked her up and down, put his arms around her waist, and said softly, "I know it's not easy for you, but in this world, some things have to be fought for. Now I just want to say a word to you. You say, I won't let you down."